All right, hello again. Good morning or good afternoon. Welcome to the Secret to Activating B2B Digital Marketing. I'm Michelle Michaels. I lead the marketing department here at Versium. Today, I will be joined by Matty, Versium's co-founder and CRO. We want today to be as valuable as possible, so we hope you find this to be educational and also walk away with some tactical next steps for preparing campaigns. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar, just as they come up, right in the Q&A section. Presentation itself will be about 40 minutes or so we'll have plenty of time at the end to answer questions. But if we don't get to one, we'll just follow up with emails after. So with no further ado, I will hand it over to Chris. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here to do this webinar for you all. I'm excited to talk about B2B digital advertising. It's really an interesting topic. When you think about the internet and how it's evolved over the years and the power that it's put in the hands of the advertiser and the brands that want to reach their target audience, it's been a tremendous game changer. But for the B2B marketer, there has been a number of challenges. The entire adtech ecosystem was really built and designed around marketing to consumers. And so today we're going to get into the interesting topic about the secret of B2B digital advertising and how you can truly unlock the value for the B2B marketer. My background, I've been involved with the internet since really the 2000 period, the turn of the century, when I was involved with a company that really pioneered bringing the white and yellow pages online. So a lot of experience dealing with data, a lot of experience around dealing with identity and people and how you reach and find a person. And that's what we do here at Versium. We help companies, both B2B and B2C marketers, better understand, identify, understand, and reach their target audience, their customers. And we do that using identity resolution technology, lots of data, and data technology tools. We have a suite of, think of Versium as a data processing workbench, where there are numerous data tools that both B2B and B2C marketers can utilize to be more data-driven on their journey of marketing. And that identity engine sits on a very vast volume of data, both contact data to the tune of billions of records or billions of contact points, and then insights data, which is characteristics about people. So a lot of exciting things we're doing here, and some of which help unlock B2B digital advertising. Today, we're going to talk about identity technology, what that really means, how it's fueled and powered the growth within the advertising industry, some changes that have happened over the past, say, 5-6 years in terms of shifting over to first-party data for activation versus the sort of lack of transparent black box platforms that are out there. And as there's been a shift towards first-party data emphasis and putting the power back in the hands of the advertiser or the marketer, what are some of the challenges in terms of dealing with data? And data can be messy, there can be errors, it can be outdated, and we're going to talk about that. And then how we address some of those things. And then ultimately, how does identity help the digital marketer solve the fundamental problem of reaching the exact people that you want to reach in a consumer-centric, ecosystem when it comes to the ad tech environment? And that's what we're going to wrap up with, which is really exciting. So let's first chat about identity. What is identity graph? What does it mean? It's really, how do you identify a person? How do you find that person? How do you reach that person? And a person can be a consumer, or a person can be a business decision maker that you want to market to. And oftentimes they're the same person. In direct mail, you want to put a piece of mail in the mailbox. In email marketing, you're going to send an email. In digital, you're creating digital advertising and impressions. In TV, obviously, with smart TV, there's ways to reach specific people in that environment also. The digital marketing market has just exploded over the last decade or two. It's supposed to hit next year upwards of $84 billion. And that's really been powered by data and data technology that allows the advertiser to effectively reach their target audience. And no point putting ads in front of somebody who you don't want to market to. And underlying that ability to target is data within the internet. And so right now, 78% of marketers say that their customer engagement is data driven. multiple data sources are used in various means by companies to refine their marketing and to be data driven in that activity. So data has been underpinning the growth within the digital ecosystem. Now, most of the digital marketing has been primarily consumer focused, just by the nature of the consumer activity that happens on the internet. And we're gonna talk about how the B2B marketer can really take advantage of this powerful vehicle within the internet. So as you think about identity and how it evolved, early on when the internet first, came into power from an advertising standpoint, it was the content at the different websites that created the targeting, right? If you've got a website that involved cars and, cool content about cars, well, people knew that, or advertisers knew that the people visiting those sites were interested in cars. Maybe it was a truck website. Maybe it was, a camping website. And people who wanted to advertise to campers knew that people visiting that site had that interest, so they put ads there. So it's really content-based. And then eventually, as things evolved and registrations became part of the internet, and you had to log in to different environments, whether it's social environments or even websites that are more content-focused. The identity data, i.e. the contact points that were used for registration, became the key to unlocking digital advertising. So when you put in your email and your address to log into a website, there were services that were able to say, oh, we know who this person is. We know their address. And there's also the demographic data and characteristics that could be associated to a person behind that identity. And these things have existed for a long time, well before the internet, for direct mail, for example. Direct mail houses and all the stuff you get in your mailbox, they target based upon the characteristics they know of the people in the address. So once the identity started emerging, or contact points started to be associated with web browsing activity, and this could be captured by cookies, other vehicles within that environment, the offline characteristics such as demographics, kids in the household, age, gender, these types of things could be associated to that browsing inventory. So now not only could somebody target based upon the content of the website, they could target based upon offline characteristics of who the person was by associating the browsing inventory via cookie to this underlying contact point at a time of registration. And there's also firmographic data that could be associated, right? If it's a person that logs in with a business domain email, well, now you can say, oh, we know that business. We know details about that business. We know the characteristics in terms of employee count, job employees, revenues, industry. And so you could target by both firmographic and consumer, all tied to this identity data that occurs through various logins. And then you start thinking about mobile IDs and browser types and things that can also be used to associate some of these characteristics. Well, as things evolved, there became problems, right? The ad platforms were really black boxes that said, do you want to target people with these characteristics? And people would buy audiences. They would buy, I want to spend $10 million, or in the case of Procter & Gamble, $200 million to target people with certain different types of characteristics. And I'm going to spend my ad budget and I put impressions on these people. And in 2018, they did an extensive study, and they found out that, in fact, there was a lot of wasted spend, that those ad dollars did not actually reach the specific people that they were intended to, or that the characteristics were not entirely accurate. There is an immense amount of traffic that is generated by computers. Either they're searching, Google's a big bot, right? It's what they are. They index the entire web. And so they're hitting web pages, reading web pages, indexing web pages. That's generating page views. And then there is nefarious activities of fake identities that are used to create impressions. And so what they discovered is that there was a lot of wasted spend, and they pulled back $200 million worth of media spend because they felt like it wasn't really effectively reaching who they thought. And that really, over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years since that time, has put a shift back towards first-party data. What we mean by that is, instead of going out to a bidding network or an ad purchasing environment saying, I want to target this segment, this audience based upon your data and the underlying characteristics, it's shifted back to, I have a bunch of data in my environment as an enterprise or as a company. I have my CRM data. I have my marketing automation data. I have marketing databases of people I want to market to. Maybe it's people I've sent direct mail out to, so I have their physical address and name. Maybe they're existing customers that I've captured the data. So all of this first-party data where the advertiser knows for certainty that these people exist, they're real people, they've communicated with them or otherwise. And you can, in the emphasis of being able to say, now I'm going to onboard my data, my first party data, and put ads just in front of those people that I have either validated or I know I want to reach. And this shift has put an emphasis on focusing on the proprietary data within the company, making sure that it's accurate, making sure that it's verified. There's some issues with how do you address the quality of that data, identity resolution. How do you enrich your first party data so that you can create segments yourself and activate? Instead of select a segment, say, I'm going to take my CRM data, I want to pull out everybody that's a high net worth person because I'm going to have a certain product I'm going to market to them. And so there's been a shift towards first party data and data activation because of some of these challenges occurring within these black box big advertising platforms. So when we say activate first party data, what we mean is that email and other contact identity data, emails, addresses, phone numbers, can actually be uploaded directly into these environments. Sometimes in an encrypted fashion. If people don't want to transfer their PII, they can hash that information or encrypt the contact point. All these platforms will accept that type of information. And now you can buy advertising against a specific audience that either you own, you create, or you certainly have great transparency for. The more contact points that you have within this data, the more reach, because now you're putting the emails into the system. The ad tech platforms are saying, oh, we find these people across these different environments, and we're going to place the digital advertising in front of just these people. So you know that your media spend is hitting the exact audience versus what Procter & Gamble experienced when they did their deep analysis. So when we think of first-party data activation and the ability to upload contact data for targeting, each platform is a little bit different, right? So here's some examples. And I talk to some people often who are in the traditional way of purchasing their media spend within the DSP environments and these different things, and they don't always realize that you can upload your own data. So Facebook accepts up to 3 emails, physical address, and phone number. Google, within their entire network, they can accept up to 8 emails, physical address, and phone number. And then LinkedIn, for example, accepts unlimited emails. And when I say up to 8 emails, I mean 8 emails per person or per identity or per individual where you want to put advertising in front of. And that's important because the average consumer in the US has somewhere between 5 and 7 email addresses. They're not all active for receiving email. Sometimes they're just used for login. I have a Yahoo email address that I've had for literally almost 20 years. I never check emails there. I never receive emails there. I haven't even logged in to receive emails there, but I happen to use that exact email for logging into my Apple account, for example, and to many other environments. And so the more emails you have about a person, the more likely you are to be able to put an ad in front of them. So these environments accept multiple identity contact points when you look to activate first-party data. So now that we've evolved to where we went from content targeting to identity-based targeting to a shift to identity data owned by the enterprise or company, that their first-party data that they want to activate, we're in great shape because now the advertiser can market to exactly who they know, ensure that the media spend is not going to bots and other unknown traffic, if you will, unknown marketing. Well, the industry experienced a new problem, which is bad data. And data is inherently fraught with errors, right? Imagine the worst case scenario of a restaurant chain that's collecting business cards in a fishbowl. and somebody has to manually enter that data. There's always errors in manual entry. At some point, data was entered in some way, oftentimes by a human. If you don't hit Shift 2 to get an @ symbol, you're going to get a 2. So instead of it being CD Matty at Yahoo, it's going to be CD Matty to Yahoo, right? That's an example of a simple data error. There is tons of data entry errors. There is age data, right? Old data, data that is no longer valid. The email is not valid. The address, people have moved. They've changed their job, things of this nature. And then just general errors that occur, cells shift. There's just all kinds of problems with data. Maybe there was some synthetic identities or fake data captured at some point, wherever and however this data within your organization was captured. So the first step in activating your first-party data is making sure it's clean. And we're going to, this goes to both B2B marketers and B2C marketers. And we're going to shift to really focusing on B2B and some of the challenges inherent to the B2B marketers here in a moment. Just generally speaking, as you look to activate first-party data, data preparation is what we call it. It's the critical, most important step. I've read that Salesforce has published numerous perspectives on data quality within CRM systems. I've heard as much as 60% of CRM data is old, outdated, simply bad, can't be used. And so if you're uploading that data into whatever ad platform you're looking to activate, Facebook, Google, or broader mapping to cookies for broader digital, if the data is bad, then you're not going to reach those people. Or you might be targeting the wrong person if it's based upon an address where the person has moved from that address, for example. So cleansing and data preparation is crucial. When we think about data preparation and its impact on reaching identities, how do you effectively clean your data? So there are tools out there that address a number of problems, right? Contact data validation, verifying that the email is valid, verifying that the email is associated with the person, phone validation, address, national change of address is used to make sure that the address is right for that person and they haven't moved, things of that nature. I mentioned data errors, data corrections. There is, tools that have organized, hundreds of different things that are seen in data. Here you see not hitting Shift 2. You see an error in the name Versium. You see not .com, you see .con, and all sorts of variations here. And then standardization, right? Rob, Robert, Bob, that's the same person, but it could be called different or be seen differently in different databases. Standardization is an issue that we see. And that happens both at name as well as within different fields, address being in one cell or address being in multiple cells. And then there's the issue of duplicate records and things of that nature. So these are all the types of data preparation processes that can be used to fix first-party data so that your digital reach is most effective. And as we enter into maybe a bit of an economic downturn, it becomes even that much more important to be smart in using your data for targeting. So once you cleanse your first-party data, it's all standardized, it's normalized, you've got a really good set of data that you want to now use to market to. There's another step before you advertise to these people. You can upload this list today and put creative digital ads in front of them. But you might want to enrich your first-party data with additional insights characteristics so you can segment that population so that you can have you can market differently to people with different characteristics. You might want to market differently to somebody who's 45 and older. You might want to have a different creative for someone who owns a house versus rents or has kids in the household. How do you create creatives that resonate to the characteristics of the person? And that's what we call insights data enrichment. And so in the old world, black box world, keep in mind when the ad platforms were doing the segmenting and the targeting, and you could buy the segment. Behind the scenes, they were doing all this. They were saying, let's bring out this demographic characteristics. Let's organize the impressions based upon these characteristics. You can do the same thing with your first-party data by using data enrichment services that take in the first-party data and look at, we see an email, we see an address, we see a phone number, we find these people in our data set, and we have these characteristics about them, the demographics, the financial, the firmographics on the business and return that back to the advertiser so they can create their own segment and really manage their creatives and optimize for greater conversion and engagement based upon the relevancy to the different characteristics of these populations of people. Now you're, sorry, I missed this slide here, but some of the characteristics I just mentioned. And ultimately, this is what drives better performance, better targeting, and more effective ROI from marketing spend. Again, all via being data-driven, in this case, through insights characteristics. So we've come to the full spectrum of how it is used, how the industry has really grown. Why has that $84 billion happen? Because of the effectiveness of all these things I've been talking about. This has been going on, this kind of journey over the last decade or two. A lot of what I've talked about is consumer-oriented perspectives, like demographic data. There's a real big problem for the B2B marketer, and that is that the entire ecosystem has been built to market to consumers. So if you've got 100,000 list in your data set, your CRM or in your first party data, you got 100,000 marketing decision makers, or maybe it's 1 million people of a certain type of business people, and you got their business contact data, i.e. their business email. Well, you've got a challenge because those attributes, those contact points, are not effectively mapped to the impressions out there on the internet. And the reason is that login that's been going on for many, many years, as I've shown, people typically use their consumer personal email address. And so even if you look at LinkedIn, which is a B2B social media networking site, it's all about business, your business, your job, your job history, where you work, things of that nature. What's interesting is that 75% of those profiles, your LinkedIn profile, is mapped to a person's personal email, not their business email. I use Matty at Yahoo. I don't use Matty at Versium. So when you upload the list of business emails, which these sites all allow you to do, as I shared earlier, if you're uploading business contact identity data, there's a real challenge in being able for those sites to find those specific people, what we call match rate. Facebook is really bad. Facebook is very much a consumer-oriented site. Well, the TV historically has been, you watch it at home, right? But there's tons of advertisers that are marketing business services to, I saw an ad for, SAP or Microsoft just the other day. Well, they're marketing to businesses, not consumers primarily. So Facebook, if you upload a list of 100,000 marketing decision makers, they're only going to find around 10 or 11% of those people. Meaning you can only put digital ads in front of a fraction of who you really want to reach. And this has really been the fundamental challenge for the B2B marketer. And hence, there's not been a tremendous amount of, most of that 85 billion or 84 billion you saw earlier has been consumer marketing. So there is a vast untapped opportunity for the B2B marketer to leverage the ecosystem if this problem could be solved. Combine the underlying kind of identity environment with the current world of COVID, right? Huge percentage of people are working from home now. There's the hybrid model. And so there were services that used geofencing, meaning we could put a lat-long association around a corporate headquarters. And lat-long is an attribute that could be used in targeting for digital because guess what? Phones and everything has GPS now. So that was one vehicle used to target people within businesses. You put a geofence around Microsoft, now you're advertising to everybody at Microsoft. Problem is you can't filter by, you're advertising to everybody. You're not advertising to just the marketing decision makers. It's impossible to filter when you do geofencing. Same thing with IP. You can do targeting with IP because IPs in the business world are fairly static. So if you know the IP associated with the company, which you can get, now you can put ads based on IP targeting. But again, you can't filter by characteristics of the person, i.e. job function, job title. You can only market to everybody under that IP. And IP is a probabilistic targeting. It's not 100% certain because there is some variability and some dynamics there. So in the new COVID world, and with all these things considered, it's super important to find those digital touch points that are more consumer oriented, i.e. Facebook, Google, Instagram, these types of environments, and put your digital ads there, because people, business decision makers, are active there. They're generating impressions. So the good news is that there is a solution to this problem, and that is the consumer to business identity linkage, what we call B2B to C identity mapping. And it's a real game changer for the B2B marketer. And we're going to get into that now and talk a little bit about how this works and how it takes the ability to only reach 10% of your digital audience on a Facebook and takes it to 80, 90, 100%. And it's really an exciting thing. It's one small piece of the whole journey here, but it's fundamental to unlock effective digital advertising for the B2B market. It's really, as I said, the title of this presentation, it is the secret to B2B digital advertising. So what is it? What does it mean? Well, we start with contact data enrichment, right? We talked a little bit about more emails, addresses, more phones associated with your first party data increases the digital reach. Well, if you're able to associate consumer personal emails to a business record, then you unlock digital advertising at scales. What I mean by that is if we can take the C Matty at Versium or a business domain email, the person's business email, and for that person, we can find C Matty at Yahoo, C Matty at Gmail, phone numbers and addresses, all of this consumer identity contact data that is used for targeting in the consumer ad tech ecosystem can now be used to unlock digital. And that's really what we talk about when we say B2B to C linkage or consumer to business linkage. Now we're talking a lot about PII data, email address and phone number. Keep in mind, everything we're talking about here can be encrypted in a fashion so that there is no PII transfer. So Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, when they say they accept multiple emails, addresses, and phone numbers, for people who are sensitive about uploading that information, they also accept a hashed email or an encrypted email, where you take the email and translate it into a bunch of gobbledygook, if you will, a bunch of encrypted string of numbers that really is that email obfuscated. But if they have the same email in their database, they can match, because the using encryption technologies, it will create the same gobbledygook. Now you do the match. So that's effectively what a hash is, and it helps address the issue of data privacy in a substantial manner. So again, start with, let's say, 1,000 or 100,000 business emails. Typically, in our B2B to C identity mapping, we will add about 6 to 7 times that volume of additional contact points for the same people. Meaning, with those 1,000 business emails, we will associate upwards of 6,000 additional contact points for those same people: email address, phone numbers, mobile IDs, these types of contact data elements that can be used by Google, Facebook, and others to ensure the ads are happening just in front of those people. And so that is the B2B to C identity graph. And you can understand how that huge volume of additional contact points can tremendously improve your ability to reach these people within the different ad tech ecosystems. To give you some specific numbers of what we see, and in fact, this is very conservative. This is a slightly older slide, and today we're seeing upwards of 90% to 100% in some cases on Facebook. You see Google is pretty close to that. The before and after. So if you take your first party business contact data within your CRM, within your marketing automation system, within whatever database you might have. Maybe you purchased a business list for your sales outreach and email marketing from a Zoom info. Well, if you upload that into Facebook, they're gonna say we can find 11% of these people. LinkedIn, it's a bit better, 54. Google, it's at 13. After you do the B2B enrichment using consumer to business contact kit via that identity solution, you see 80, 85, 90% across the board, which means literally, 3 to 5x increase in ability to reach your target audience. So now you can unlock digital spend and make sure you're reaching specifically the people you want to in an effective way. Without the consumer to business linkage, it really is a challenge. So it's a revolutionary impact for the B2B marketer. Really the secret to B2B digital advertising. So this is match rate, which is really, when we say match rate, it's do these platforms find or see these people, i.e., do they have that contact data within their environment and associated to social profiles, cookies, or other things so that they can put impressions, digital creatives, in front of those specific people. We call that match rate. But it's not just do they see those people. We have to talk about, are these people generating inventory? Are they engaging with the ads? And so just finding them is one measure of reach, but it's not a true measure of effective advertising. So let's take it one step further. This is a test, A/B test. The red column is strictly business contact data sourced from a business list provider. You think of it as a D&B, a Zoom Info, a Seamless AI, where you can go and say, I want to buy a list of 250,000 IT decision makers because I want my sales team to call them. My marketing automation team is going to load them into the marketing automation system. We're going to do some email marketing. Now let's talk digital ads. We want to upload it into Google. So we've got an example here of 50,000 people that we want to target. These are SaaS marketing decision makers. If you upload that into Google, you'll see a 35% match rate, meaning Google, through its entire network, is able to only find or see 35% of these people in terms of they have those contact data sets in their universe. Set a CPM of $3 and a test spend of $150, and let's now run our impressions. Well, if you can only find 35%, what's going to happen with the other 65%? You're not putting impressions in front of them. So when we do the B2B to C identity mapping through the consumer to business linkage, you'll notice we took it up to 91 to 100% match rate. This is a 3x increase in match rate, or a 3x increase in the potential to reach these people. But we haven't put impressions out there yet. This is just Google sees these emails in their system somewhere. Okay, so now we run our spend. You'll notice we drove 5 times the number of impressions, which means that those contact points are associated with people that are surfing in Google in the different environments and generating inventory or page views where impressions can appear. And now Google could say, we can generate for the same budget 5 times the number of impressions. So while it was a 3x increase in finding the people, it was a 5x increase in delivering ad inventory, meaning you can spend your budget reaching exactly who you want at 3 times the rate or 5 times the ability, because you're going to want to serve multiple impressions to the person to get them to engage. Ultimately, what do you want them to do? Not just see a little creative. You want them to click through the creative, come to your website, engage in your content, learn what you do, maybe and hopefully fill out a lead form so your salespeople can say, hey, I want to market to these people. Well, those 5x impressions drove 10 times the number of clicks. And what that means is not only did we deliver more inventory, but we delivered it in an environment where the business person actually clicked on the ad because they're actively engaged within that environment. And you'll see that the click-through went up by 10x. So you ultimately unlocked your digital media spend. You've got a $2,000 budget, let's say a day. You've got a pretty good budget on a monthly basis. Well, you're only tapped into 10% of that without this environment, without this ability. So it really is a complete game changer for the B2B digital marketer. And it's evident here in this example. And we see this all the time. It's an exciting thing when you start thinking about how do you effectively reach your audience as a B2B marketer using the digital ecosystem. There are other things that can be done. interestingly, you might you might be driving impressions to your website. We mentioned contact append. That really is additional email addresses and phone numbers added to an existing record for the same person. Online audience at the bottom is this B2B to digital, or all the contact points, not just what, the first one is, we verify the email for email delivery, things of that nature. But the second to the middle I want to talk about, which is, let's assume you're doing other things, of course you are, that generates traffic to your website. Most of that traffic does not fill out a form, does not fill out a lead, does not buy. Certainly in the B2B world, there's a funnel, there's a journey. So what happens with that anonymous traffic? Well, you're capturing other data, metadata in the browsing activity, such as IP. There are solutions that can take the IPs associated with the traffic and at a pretty healthy percentage identify the businesses associated with those IPs. I talked about IP as a targeting mechanism. So if you can capture the IP, there are solutions that can take that IP and say, this is the businesses that have been visiting your site. And now you can retarget, you can turn your salespeople loose on calling those businesses because they have an interest. They visited your site. Otherwise, you wouldn't even know. So once you get a business or business domain, what's the next step is account-based marketing, where now you can filter with those companies the people you want to target. Account-based marketing is marketing to an account or marketing to a company. And you want to market to the buying committee. Not just you might want to market to the user, the user supervisor or manager, the budget approver, and so on. So there's a committee in the B2B world that's involved in approving a business, and you want to build awareness within that group. And you may want to do that with digital advertising. So once you've got the business, whether it be from IP to a business domain mapping, or whether it's just a list of businesses, a list of named accounts you want to target, you can actually create a digital audience to reach specific people with certain functions and titles within that business using the contact data that can be associated with an account-based marketing list. And then you do the B2B to C mapping, and you're off and running and doing exciting digital advertising towards named targeted accounts. So these are some of the types of tools that are that are available to B2B digital marketers that want to tap into the digital ecosystem for their marketing and advertising. And with that, we are just at 41 minutes, I think. And we talked a bunch about different things that can be done. We talked about the power of B2B2C identity mapping and how the ecosystem of the adtech evolved to really ultimately the secret to unlocking B2B digital advertising. A lot of tools, a lot of the things we talked about, whether it's data cleanse, insights data enrichment, B2B2C identity mapping. These are examples of tools that can be used that are out in the market. Versium Reach is one of these, as I mentioned, like a data processing workbench. And you'll see there is a number of different tools. Some are consumer data tools, some are business data tools that do all these types of things we've been talking about. So with that, I'll leave the last bit of time here for questions. So Michelle, I'll invite you back in here, and hopefully we've got some good, exciting questions from the audience today.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. We have had some questions come through, so we're just going to go ahead and get started on these. First up, how would I identify and fix bad data in bulk?
That's a great question, because it's easy to say, or I'm looking at an email, something's wrong with it. And the old way of doing it was to hire a big professional services company, and they put hours into it. And there are tools that have evolved to do this. The first step is what is in your data. A lot of times people think they have good data, they have no idea what's going on in there. So the first step is inspecting and evaluating. And there are tools. We have one that does a deep field inspection and assesses the quality of the data. You upload a data sample set in, and we say, hey, do you know that 7% of your emails are not valid? Do you know that 12% of your address fields are not formatted correctly? Do you know that there's X amount of records that are duplicates? And so it does an assessment so that you understand. It's really an audit, a quality audit of your data. That's the first step. And now you know what needs to be fixed. And so once that audit is performed, you can decide which data preparation or cleanse tools you want to apply. And it may be, for example, some people, you know what, I use address as a main key. Even if there's errors, those errors are through my system. I don't want to change it, right? So everybody does things differently. And so think of it as sort of a pipeline of how you fix it. So first is what's wrong? Okay, I want to fix these things. You select what you want to fix, and it creates a really customized polishing or cleansing process. And now, once you've figured that out, you can hit a button, upload your data set, and it will be changed or corrected. And a really important thing, whenever you do this with anybody, you don't want to completely overwrite your data because it might be keyed off differently in different systems. What we do is we preserve the initial input and we create a second set of cleansed data so that if there's ever an issue, the last thing you want to do is lose data because you overwrite it with something that may not be correct or there's an error or something like that. So that can be done at bulk, at scale, and very quickly.
Great, thank you, Chris. Moving on, can you tell us how often Versium data is updated or refreshed?
Absolutely. It's not as easy of a question as it might sound. We have lots and lots of sources of data and different types of data. Demographic data, at scale for the U.S. population, for example, is updated on a quarterly basis. We get that from sources that use address and other elements for targeting in the traditional marketing world, and then we map it into emails and other identity data. Email data, contact data, we're getting data in on a daily, weekly, monthly basis from multiple sources. And so really the answer to the question is daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, depending on the type of data that we're getting. Some of it is injected in real time. Some of it is done on a quarterly build basis in the case of demographic data. But our identity mapping, what's interesting, what makes us a bit unique, is we do all that mapping at runtime in real time so that we're always including the freshest data. We're pulling out the bad data, we're putting in the good data, we're adding new data. So anybody using our capabilities is getting it the freshest data possible.
Great, thank you. All right, let's see. So I know you touched on this in the presentation, but can you just go over again? We have a question about, can we work with you if our clients won't send out PII? How would I work with Versium if I can't transfer PII?
That is a very good question, especially in in our current environment. Privacy is an important thing. We're very privacy forward thinking, so we're very sensitive to these things. It's possible, and I kind of mentioned it a little bit in the presentation, but what we call hashing of an email, right, which is really encrypting. And so if a person has address, email, phone numbers, they want to use targeting or even do enrichment, demographic enrichment. Our systems, well as the adtech ecosystems for accepting that data, accept hashed contact data, whether it be for ad targeting or whether it be for data enrichment. And really, again, that's a SHA-256. There's a couple different algorithms that create a numerical representation of the email. It might be a string of 25 different characters or phone number. 25 numerical or representation that is really a code for the email. And nobody decrypts that. What happens is when you pass it into the system, if that same email exists within whatever system you're transferring, and they use the same algorithm to encrypt it, it will actually create the same numerical code. So now the mapping and association and the return of data can happen without any PII transfer and allow people to adhere to their privacy standards and policies and so forth.
Got it. Thank you. All right. Have a question about, can you speak to, are there any specific industries or company size that this type of data enhancement and digital activation works best for? Is it kind of same across the board, or have you seen like a specific industry that this tends to work best for?
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, we serve a very broad swath of industries. And the nice thing is because they're automated tools for it to deliver it economically, even if you've got a fairly small set of data, because it's all automated, we can still deliver the same function. Whereas the old way, only the big giant companies that had huge data sets that to bring human resources in to do some of these types of things. So it's from that sense, it touched the spectrum of small and large companies. There is one caveat to that, though. You have to have a certain amount of media spend. Some of these ad tech environments, Google and others, will require a minimum spend. So if you're not spending 20 grand a month on advertising, it might be difficult to effectively tap into some of the platforms because I think Google requires a minimum of 50K commitment before you can unlock their, use their environment. So there are some limitations there. But from a product standpoint, even just if you want to data prep and clean your data, even for not just for digital advertising, just to make sure you got really good data. From Versium's perspective, we have some folks that pay us a few $100 a month because they have a very small scale of data, and others that are cleansing 100 million records at massive scale. And then from an industry perspective, some industries, targeting achieves better results. If it's a really specific niche market and you really need unique characteristics to effectively target, unless you have those unique characteristics, it might be difficult to get that from an enrichment service. But if you have those characteristics and you have some contact data, contact append or the B2B2C mapping will still work pretty well. So the good news is it's a benefit to a lot of people, but there are some nuances, and we'd be happy to in more detail on, depending on the specific nature of that person's business. Feel free to contact us, and we will certainly see if we can get more specific on the question answer.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Another one that just came in. We'd like to know some more information about any white labeling features or APIs. Can you speak a bit to the Versium APIs and how those work?
Another great question. So, I tried, we talked a lot about, what and how you can do, and certainly we provide a lot of tools that do a lot of these things. There are really two ways that we deliver some of this functionality to our customers. One is through the Versium Reach's UI, user interface tool, which is a web interface. You can upload a file, you can select what you want to do, different tools, go and do it using the UI-based tools. But we also have a very rich API infrastructure. In fact, on our website, there's a whole developer portal section where we've got a bunch of information on getting these types of capabilities via an API, which means that you can actually programmatically do some of this stuff. So you can programmatically hit the API and do contact data enrichment. You can do programmatic enrichment with demographics and firmographics, with IP to domain. These are all things that you can hit an API if you want to automate the capability so that it pulls right from whatever system, drops it in seamlessly. It also allows these capabilities to be built into other environments, such as the CDP environment. We've got a partnership with people like Lytics and Treasure Data. So if that's where the customer first-party data resides and you want to do enrichment programmatically from that environment, you can do it by hitting the APIs. And we've done integrations with those environments and with others as well. Zapier is another one that gives us the ability to do some very quick integrations with different systems. And so this allows a couple things. It allows you, the end customer at scale, to do it programmatically. It allows companies that are building other products or solutions that maybe want to incorporate data enrichment or these types of mapping into their products. And so we have a very rich API set of APIs that allow all this stuff to be done via those means.
Great, thank you, Chris. And we'll follow up with more information on that for the individual who had asked that question after the webinar.
And while I'm thinking, Michelle, just sorry to cut you off there. The other thing I would note on the API integration is oftentimes that allows more customization. And so, and what I mean by that is you can tune accuracy and match rate, or you can get more specific in terms of the output that comes from our platform, maybe to the particular individual's nuances or needs. We can tune and tweak the APIs to deliver slightly different results that might be more tuned to different use cases, worthy mention.
Great. Well, we're actually going to be able to give you guys a couple minutes back here. We have come to the end of our questions. And so if there is anything further after the webinar that comes up, feel free to reach out. Chris, your contact information is on the next slide right there. Reach out to sales directly. Any marketing related questions, you can reach out to me at marketing@versium.com. But thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much, Chris. And we'll be following up with recordings as well of this webinar. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.